Today we're going to talk about what caused the baby formula shortage in the United States, how Republicans blamed it on Biden, and how they're blocking efforts to solve it. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So for the last few weeks, we've dealt with a crisis that I think hit in a much more visceral way, a much more emotional way, and that is the issue of the baby formula shortage for reasons that are obvious. So just a quick explainer on what landed us here. In February, Abbott Nutrition, which is the largest infant formula manufacturer in the United States, saw one of its largest production facilities in Sturgis, Michigan, shut down after a bacterial contamination was linked to 4 infants getting sick and 2 infants dying. As a result of losing one of Abbott's largest facilities, there was a shortage in infant formula, right? Just basic supply and demand. When you take away the supply, you're left with an inevitable shortage. Couple that with the fact that U.S. producers manufacture 98% of the infant formula that's consumed in the United States, meaning that there really isn't a market where foreign producers can fill in gaps in our supply. And remember that Trump's USMCA trade deal that replaced NAFTA actually reduced or sought to reduce baby formula production in Canada by preventing them from being able to import their goods into the United States. Cut to 4 years later, and this is what an America First agenda looks like, where the entire baby formula market is owned by just a couple of companies, and there's no way for those foreign producers to fill in the gaps. And we can get into why our antitrust regulations in this country are a complete failure, but that's another episode entirely. Anyway, you will be shocked to hear that Republicans have used this opportunity to attack who else but Joe Biden, even though the White House had zero impact on this, and the only impact that the federal government did have was that the FDA shut down the Sturgis plant because they'd actually cut a ton of corners and ignored a bunch of warning signs, and their formula was killing babies. So I know that conservatives love to vilify government bureaucracy, but that government bureaucracy saved God knows how many lives by intervening. So Republicans are using every waking minute to slam the left because babies are hungry, and so why not exploit that really visceral crisis for partisan gain? And so every day it's, this is Joe Biden's America, this never happened when Trump was in office, Biden doesn't care about babies, and on and on. The attacks are bullshit, but that doesn't still mean that we don't move to fix it. So House Democrats introduced legislation, the Infant Formula Supplemental Appropriations Act, which provided $28 million in emergency funding to the FDA. And some people are complaining about this, that this isn't money for formula, it's for government bureaucrats. That $28 million funds FDA inspection staff, it provides funding for those working on formula issues, and it stops dangerous, fraudulent formula from entering the U.S. marketplace. If none of these are in place, then what stops a pre-existing crisis from going from bad to worse? This not only helps ensure that we can restock the shelves safely in this country, but it stops the issue from happening again. And yet, when the bill came up for a vote, it passed 231 to 192, with every single no vote coming from Republicans. Consider, too, the Access to Baby Formula Act, which ensured that low-income families could continue to buy formula with WIC benefits, women, infant, and children benefits. That passed 414 to 9, with all of those no votes also being Republicans. I'm sure you can already guess which Republicans, from Matt Gaetz to Marjorie Taylor Greene. In other words, you've got this party that's taken every opportunity to complain about a problem and pin the blame on Joe Biden for an issue that he quite literally had nothing to do with. And yet when Democrats actually offered a solution, you've got a parade of Republicans falling over themselves to vote against it. And the reason here is obvious, right? It's because problems like this one, where they can falsely claim governing failure by Democrats, help them politically. Republicans don't want the baby formula shortage to be fixed any more than they want gas prices to go down or immigration to stop. They want these problems to subsist because they are useful as talking points, which is why Republicans quite literally never have a single solution for any of these issues. They'll hold press conferences until they are blue in the face, but there's no legislation, no bills, no ideas, no fixes. They would rather Americans continue to get hurt because that helps them politically. And if you think that both parties do it, consider this. When Trump was president, every single Democrat voted for the $2 trillion CARES Act, the initial COVID relief package, even though doing so would invariably help Donald Trump. But when Biden took office, and all we'd gotten up to that point after a year of this pandemic was one relief package, and the Democrats introduced the American Rescue Plan, 0 Republicans voted for that because hurting Joe Biden was more important than helping Americans. So when these Republicans stand at their podiums and go off about how criminal it is that there's a baby formula shortage in the United States, it is proof that they understand the seriousness of this issue. They understand that it's life and death, which makes it all the worse when they turn around and vote against any of the solutions, because they are admitting that they want an issue that serious and scary not to get fixed. And that is about as damning an indictment as you'll ever find. To check out this week's interview with Fox LA's Alex Michelson, where we talk about the LA mayoral race, Gavin Newsom's moves to codify road protections in the California Constitution, and whether Newsom will eventually run for president, it is exclusively available on my podcast. So click the thumbnail right here on the screen for my podcast, or check out No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.